So a couple weeks now with the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G, and I want to go over some complaints that people have had and the things that they've brought up, and I think a lot of them are somewhat baseless, but we'll go over them, or they're things that are preference, and we'll talk about that as well. The biggest complaint that I've heard people have is the fact that the A54 5G once again has an Exynos. And while some people have some legitimate concerns about the Exynos processor in the A54, a lot of people are dismissing the device just based on the name and the fact that it has an Exynos. The fact, just to dismiss it by having an Exynos chipset, I think is really missing the point of the device and not giving the A54 5G a fair shake. There are plenty of things that were bad in the past that have gotten better. There was a time when people only wanted HTC phones and HTC Sense for their Android devices. There was a time when people didn't want Samsung software because it was terrible. TouchWiz was bad. Now that's not the case. And of course, there was a time when people didn't want an Exynos, but they have gone to lengths to improve the performance of the chipset. So every device that comes in, I have to look at it and give it the benefit of the doubt. It's like what Reagan said about the Soviets, trust but verify. We have to bring it in and give it a chance and judge the device on the merits of what this actual device brings to the table. And I can tell you, after using it for a couple weeks and after being someone who was absolutely horrified by the Exynos 1280 that was in the A53 5G, that this is a perfectly good chipset. I know a lot of people were complaining, oh, it's too slow. Oh, it doesn't load up apps that quickly. And you know what? It takes an extra beat to load up apps sometimes. And if that's the biggest thing, like we did with the comparison with the Pixel 6a when I was talking in that video, if that's your metric, if just pure raw power and speed is the thing that is most important to you, then yes, the Pixel 6a is going to be a better choice for you over something like an A54 5G. But there are people who would rather chew on glass than buy a Pixel device, and vice versa, okay? It goes both ways. There are Pixel fans who absolutely wouldn't touch a Samsung device, and there are Samsung people who are diehards for whatever reason, where they want One UI 5.1, they've been burned too many times by the Pixel update issues and the problems with the Pixel 6, and so on and so forth, going all the way back. So they're just done with it, and they just like Samsung. They like what Samsung has to offer, that they need a device in this price range, and this fits the bill. It's not going to be a performance beast. It's not going to be one that you're just like blazing and amazed by every single time you pick up the phone. And that is what I feel like when I pick up the 6A. I can never get over how fast that device is. However, there is a trade-off. You can't have everything at $449. The trade-off is this beautiful, gorgeous display, 120 hertz. A bunch of people were talking about how, they can't have anything that doesn't have a display like this. Well, this is a phone for you, so you're going to have to sacrifice a little bit of performance. Along the Exynos line, people were complaining about overheating. This device doesn't overheat. When I was first setting it up, was it getting a little warm? Yes. When I was doing gaming, was it getting a little warm? Yes, it's an Exynos. But this idea that it somehow overheats or heats up more than other devices around is a little ridiculous. My Galaxy Flip 4 running the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 Plus, when I was updating it, it was unbelievably hot to the touch on the top section. So this device doesn't get any hotter than that, any hotter than any other Exynos or even Snapdragon one for that matter. It wasn't something that I felt was bad on this particular device, and I tested 4K 30. I shot 12 minutes of 4K 30 video on the A54 5G, and it was barely warm to the touch on the back of the device. Barely. Not along the frame, not along anything. It felt fine. So this idea that it just overheats and it's going to burn up in your hand is ridiculous. Maybe that had happened in the past. I know people overseas with the Exynos flagship processors have had difficulty with that in the past, but that's not something that's going to be an issue for you here. Battery life people were complaining about, which I'm really shocked by. I was getting similar battery life to the Pixel 6a with my A54 5G. No issues there, 6.5 hours. And I forget the YouTuber who it was. I believe it was Jay Williams, who has stopped basically giving screen on time as a metric for battery. Like, look at how smooth that Twitter scroll was. You couldn't do that last year. That's perfectly fine. You can enjoy the 120 hertz on a beautiful panel, 1000 nits brightness, and still get decent enough performance that you could take advantage. But like I was saying about the battery life, I think it was Jay Williams. Just stop with the screen on time. Just went with the overall, how long is it between when I have to take it off the charger, go my entire day, and when I have to put it back on the charger. I think we're going to start at least giving that number as a comparison or as a metric alongside of the screen on time, because everybody's screen on time is different. Your proximity to your cell tower, 5G signal, how much time you spend on Wi-Fi, all that stuff is going to factor in to your specific usage on the screen on time. So everybody's is going to be different. What I try to give as a number for screen on time is Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, Discord, stuff like that, Samsung Internet, email, a little bit of Pokemon Go. So I do smatter in some gaming in there to give you kind of a representative day for the device. And with that, all of that taken into account, I get 6.5 hours of screen on time. A lot of other goofy complaints I've heard. No HDMI out on the bottom of it because that's mostly affected by DeX. If this doesn't have DeX, they're not going to put HDMI. I know some devices do it anyway, so you could kind of use an external display with it. $449, that's not something I'm looking at. That's not something I'm looking at. When they can give you... The Samsung has only so many dollars they could put into each device. And every manufacturer, when you're talking sub $500, has decisions to make. You can agree with them or not, but they have decisions to make. This is what Samsung says they are going to allot their resources to. Not the best processor in the world. Better build. I love the Gorilla Glass front and back. I think it feels premium. Some people hate the fact that it has the plastic frame still as opposed to the Pixel 6a, which has the metal frame. I don't. It's a solid plastic. Doesn't feel cheap. And when you marry that with the glass front and back, it feels pretty good. And the flat screen. People are complaining about the screen too small. You're going to really get to some nitpicking in here when it talks about this device. But I'm going to tell you this. As somebody who hated last year's device, who understands where Samsung's coming from at least, I could use this device, which I have for the better part of 2 weeks now, and I can understand exactly what Samsung was trying to provide and the cost and the value proposition that they were trying to provide to the customer, and it makes sense. I could see the mission statement with this phone, and it delivers on that. You could want that or you could not want that. But what to me the debate isn't whether this phone is worth it. I think this phone is absolutely worth the money this year. If you're looking at this completely objectively, coming in a clean slate, no bias, you pick this up and use this for 2 weeks, and you're somebody who's inclined to enjoy a brighter, punchier, better 120Hz display, a premium build quality, Samsung One UI 5.1, expandable storage, which this device keeps with people jump up and down about. If you're able to enjoy all of that, then you're going to get enjoyment out of this device. Are there still areas where the Pixel 6a is better? Yes. Camera and performance. Absolutely still better. But that's the Google philosophy for a device at $449. You can't have everything. So these nitpicky and just ridiculous complaints about the A54, I don't want to hear it this year. I don't want to hear it. Samsung did a good job. It really becomes a decision and a discussion about whether this feature set, this value set that Samsung has given you, matches what you need in a phone or it doesn't. That's it. This phone will absolutely get you through every single daily task you could ever think of. Light gaming comes up a little bit short on the gaming, but you can still do it. Fantastic speakers, beautiful display. It comes down to preference. But unlike last year, where last year's device was, I think, objectively bad, this one at least has a shot and deserves to be a part of the conversation. If you've made it this far, like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Until next time, have that Steve-licious day.